Hello everyone and welcome to week 10 of the Neon Dev Bootcamp. This is also the last module of this program, so first off, shout out to all of you for making it this far. Now, time to finish strong. Today, we're diving into go-to-market strategy in Web3, and I think this is going to be an interesting session because even the best product won't go anywhere if no one knows that it exists. So, let's unpack today's agenda. We'll see what a go to market strategy is, the key components, how to apply them to your own project, and how to measure if you're doing it right. Let's start with the basics. A go to market plan is basically the moment you bring your product to life. So, how to put it in front of the right people and give them a reason to use it, care, and stick with you. Just a heads up, today's lesson is going to build on top of the product market fit video. So if you haven't gone through it yet, make sure to check it out. Now, let's see the go-to-market framework. Any solid go-to-market strategy needs to consider 6 core components. First of all, why are you building that thing? And how you're positioned in the market, who you're targeting, what story are you telling, where to distribute it, how to execute this strategy, and finally, when is the right time to launch. So we can already see that a go to market plan is not something just related to marketing, but it's more a cross functional game. Now, before we break these components down, let's zoom out for a second because when we talk about go-to-market strategy, we're basically operating at the intersection of two moving pieces, let's say. On the one hand, we have the user journey, and on the other hand, we have your product or project life cycle. Let's see the user acquisition funnel first. I know this might give you some back to school vibes, but I think it's always relevant. So we can split the user journey into different stages. The first one is awareness, when someone hears about you for the first time and they know you exist. Then we have interest, the phase when these users start exploring, start asking questions. Maybe they hop on your website. The conversion stage, when the action actually happens. And finally, the retention phase, the time where your user repeat this action, they come back and maybe they tell someone else about your product. Now, all of these, so the user acquisition funnel needs to be mirrored against the phase you're in. We can identify 3 core stages. Pre-launch, so when you're crafting the narrative, your unique selling proposition and start building credibility in front of your audience. The launch phase, so the time of execution, campaigns and tactics. And the post-launch, which is focused on optimization based on data and on retention. While most teams consider go-to-market as a checklist, this is not, this is a loop. So this means that you have to repeat it again and again in order to stay relevant in the market. Okay, said this, we can start with our breakdown. First point, why? Your positioning. There are 4 key questions that every builder should answer. So why does your project exist? This defines your unique selling proposition, the value that you're bringing to the market. Why does it matter? So assess the product market fit. Why you? In a world full of choices, what's your competitive edge? Why now and not later? So, timing. If you don't define these things, the market will do it for you. And there's a high probability you're not going to like it. So, narrow down and focus on these core questions. And talking about positioning, we can simplify a bit and identify 2 paths. The first option is you enter an existing category, red ocean. On the other hand, you could create your own category, blue ocean. So let's see how these paths differ. On a red ocean, you're moving into very competitive landscape where the rules are already set. To win, you need to have a very strong point of view that enables you to reframe the ladder to gain a competitive advantage. A clear example of this is Solana, that has completely redefined the layer 1 race by focusing on speed as the winning feature. On the other hand, if you are creating a new category, this means that you do your rules. At the same time, people will be a bit skeptical and you need to carry the burden of education. An example of this is Celestia that pioneered the modular blockchain. In this case, the key move will be to convince people that your product matters and your category matters. So both paths are valid. What matters is stay consistent with your choice. Also, do not consider the blue ocean as an option that only exists for super innovative products. You don't need to reinvent the wheel to play this game. Sometimes you can just be creative and identify the right storytelling. All right, let's move on with the second point. Who? Your audience. I want to start from this famous quote by Seth Godin: everyone is not your customer. So if you're talking to everyone, you're doing something wrong. However, we need to consider that Web3 plays by its own rules. We are not talking about just user base, but community. And this means that you'll be inevitably speaking to different audiences at the same time, starting from token holders, builders, investors, users, of course, tech partners, and why not also institutions. Each of these needs a reason to care, and your go to market strategy will need to consider all these layers, even if, of course, the composition of your community will highly depend on what you do. But yeah, same product, different lenses. This needs to be reflected in your execution. This means clearly identify your goal and who you are speaking to in a certain moment. All right, you have a clear overview of your audience. You have identified your unique selling proposition and your positioning. Now is the time when you create the storytelling. So we are shifting from positioning to branding. They can be seen as two sides of the same coin, the yin and yang. One is rational positioning, the other is emotional, and you need both. Storytelling is what shapes your messaging and narrative. And in Web3, narrative market fit is probably even more important than product market fit, so don't underestimate this part. A great message needs to hit four marks. Make your value instantly clear. We are in the tension economy, people don't have time, so keep it easy and impactful. Show what makes you different. In a crowded market, standing out is your superpower. Hit where your target audience feels it. So focus on the real pain you're solving and communicate it in the right way. Be consistent and authentic because this is the only way you build trust and a brand. Here I put a great example by Apple. As you can see here, they didn't talk about storage, they didn't talk about features. They said 1,000 songs in your pocket when they launched the iPod. And I think this is especially important in Web3 because we are moving in a tech space, but value is always more effective than features. Okay, your strategy is clear. Now it's time to enter the execution phase. I want to stress how important distribution is because there's nothing more relevant than finding and identifying the right channels at the right moment. So let's take once again the funnel from awareness to retention. Maybe in a pre launch phase, you're going to be more focused on social media. You can also consider PRs, events, of course, your website, community channels, and more. The important thing is to do things thinking about the goal you want to achieve and not to be on a channel just because other projects are there. One last thing, don't forget to look on chain because the blockchain is a public ledger full of information, so you can really leverage this information at your own advantage. With all of this in mind, we've come to the how, so the part where you identify the campaigns and tactics to bring your go to market strategy to life. Here we have once again the stages of the funnel. Let's consider that unfortunately there is not a one size fits all and there is not a playbook that is valid for any Web3 project. However, we can identify some campaigns or some type of actions that can be linked to the stages of the funnel. For example, in the phase of awareness, we will probably have more activities on social media, PR, SEO. Maybe you are also involving some KOLs or important account to amplify your messaging, and maybe you'll be more focused on the educational side. And moving on to the other stages, you're going to pursue other objectives like onboarding quests to help users carry out the action that you want, ambassadors programs in the phase of retention, maybe referral programs, and all of this. So, once again, what matters is to design the campaign based on the goals that you want to achieve. And finally, the tricky part, when to launch, because even the perfect go to market strategy may flop if the timing is wrong. Ask yourself, what's happening in the market right now? Are there any emerging trends that we can leverage? But most of all, are we actually ready product wise and team wise? Because, guys, there is nothing worse than having all the attention on you while your product is not ready. Because bringing user back once they've tried your platform is going to be much more difficult than attract them the first time. So be wise. At the same time, I want to say that it's super dangerous and hard to try to time the market. So let's consider also this aspect, even if Web3 is highly driven by speculation. So don't rush your launch just because the market is green, basically. I want to close today's session touching on this point, measurement. So don't forget to set KPIs throughout all this process. Each stage of the funnel has its own KPIs. You're going to look at mindshare if you are in the awareness phase. Then you're going to have maybe community and social growth, so new followers, website traffic, sign-ups, transaction, deposits, staking. It really depends on what you're building. And finally, all the metrics related to retention. Tracking and monitoring is the only way to assess if your go-to-market strategy is proceeding the right way or if you're just making noise. So, to wrap it up, we can say that marketing is not art and it's not science either. It's both. So, be strategic, be creative, and don't forget to measure. Don't just launch with intention. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for sticking with me. And now ship it like you mean it. If you have any questions, you know where to find us. Ciao!